So what are you going to tell us, tough guy? I said, my usual. Zero, nothing.
What's going on up in Sydney?
Mate, the sun decided to poke its head out today. It's been MIA for the last 10 days. So yeah, just got a pretty good glow this morning after gone for a good run up to North Head, mate. Clocked up 10Ks or so. So yeah, bro.
That's good. That's good. We it was a similar story down here, but me and Jesse, we got up this morning, dropped little man off at daycare. Best day of the week.
Awesome.
3 days with him is amazing, but it's so funny how much like the 2 days just to be able to go, all right, what are we doing? So it's so nice. So yeah, I went for a run this morning. I've been mixing up a bit. For ages, man, I was getting into a routine of just doing just easy runs, which is fine. It feels really good and I enjoy it. But then I remember a couple of times we were having a bit of a chat in your men's circle, and we were speaking about the warrior archetypes and just the value of hard work. And so I've tried to be a bit more disciplined with injecting a faster kind of run or a harder kind of training session into my week since then. And today's was so I just jog out for 3K as a bit of a warm up. And then I turn around and just come home as fast as I can. so it was one of those, but bro, it's funny, man. Obviously coming from a running background, I've got an appreciation for what it feels like to run hard, but you forget, when you just get into that routine of going for some jogs. I got about a K into the 3K hard hit out home. And I was like, oh gee, here we go. The lungs are kicking into gear, and that was the best morning, bro. Same here. I standard, had the shirt off. And then, man, look out for the Instagram photos on Jesse's page, because we went down to the beach just here at Queenscliff after, and bro, it was like the perfect morning. You could have been anywhere in the world. It was when the water's just silk and it's clear, and there was these big nice fish swimming around us. There's so many boats out having a fish. It was we were saying it's the ultimate start to the morning. But man, it's not news to you. I know that's your morning routine at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, so good, mate. Yeah, no, I saw Jipper's photos. It look great.
She's already posted,
definitely. Yeah. I spotted it, mate. No, it's unreal. Running is it's you get fitter, but that pain it doesn't actually get easier. You just you run a little bit faster, 10 seconds faster, but it's still the lungs still burn just as much. It's it's funny, you get faster, but the pain is just as intense each time.
Yeah, it's my favorite workout, I reckon. Honestly, I love going to the gym. As you can tell, bro, I'm a big unit. I love going to the gym and having a little workout when I can. But the best I love that fatigue feeling that you have in your legs after a hard run, where you can, I don't know if you get it, but after a hard run like this morning, I've still got this slight ache in my lungs, and my legs have this dull pain, but it's the most beautiful pain. It's just it's honestly, it's if you put it in pill form, people would pay so much money for it, hey, because I've been through a little bit of a history, just growing up and having a little dabble in alcohol, and having a little dabble in the nightlife scene, and having a little dabble in different various forms of fitness. But I reckon that running one for me is maybe I'm biased because I got a history in that. But do you know what I mean? You got a bit of a gym background, so I don't know if you get the same feeling from a gym workout, but for me they don't quite compare.
No, bro, I love running as well. I've had a massive renaissance with running over the last couple of years since the gyms were shut, as we've talked about. But I actually just love being outside and working up a sweat, even if it's doing the odd free weights thing at the park kind of thing. But it's just being in the gym is fine, it's good, but it's just I think the UV lights and everyone's sort of stuck in the box there, and using the equipment and things like that. Just running up. I just did up where I run. There's a trail, so just running through the bush. The sun's out. You're sweating way more than I would in the gym, and then I jump in the ocean afterwards, mate. So it's just it's a lot more holistic, and the vitamin D from the sun and all that sort of stuff. And it's just great. It's just a great vibe as well, especially in the mornings. You'll just see people out and about doing their thing, walking their dog, going for a swim, going for a jog. as opposed to, you know, just lying on the equipment at the gym. So, you know, time and place, but yeah, I'm definitely enjoying the running, bro.
Yeah. What are you doing? Like, are you running every day at the moment?
No, I'm running probably like 3 times a week, 2 or 3 times a week. Just catching up with a mate, maybe once a week. We go for like a pretty good run. He's a pretty fit unit. And then just probably, yeah, like I said, maybe once, twice more a week kind of thing. Probably on the weekend, Saturday, Sunday morning, and then try and squeeze a couple in. Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
sweet man. Is
feel
this the
good.
bloke you were telling me about yesterday? The guy who done that. I don't even know what the official name is, but he'd done some breathing course, and you'd saying he'd be a good bloke to have on the running podcast.
No, it's actually Matty Williams.
Oh
Who you
yeah,
met,
hello,
Matty.
Matty.
So yeah, no, he's a fit unit. I think he used to do like triathlons maybe a few years ago. He loves his cycling at the minute, but just sort of hops straight back on the road and you know, runs pretty quick Ks and stuff like that. And so he's a good man to hold the pace, and I just try and catch up with him or keep up with him. So
Yeah,
yeah,
awesome, bro. No,
that's
awesome,
it.
man. Awesome. You cut out for a minute there. I don't know if that's oh no, I got you. I got you. Sweet. It's I can't wait till we can do these face to face again, bro. It's been a little while. Like it's funny before we hit record this morning because for those of you listening who I'm sure you heard of it. It's a really well known podcast all around the world. Pally and I we met in London and when we were there we had a little dabble with the Intention podcast. So it feels like we're treading back on some old territory here, but man, it's been interesting couple of years since London, hasn't it? We were I still remember when we got back, and like it was such a crazy. I don't know if you felt the same, but for me, getting back to Australia, I was buzzing, man. Like I was so ready for it. I'd seen some other countries, I'd seen some other places, and as good as they were, it just gave me like this even greater sense of appreciation for how great Australia is. Like it's such a great country, but it's been a wild ride the last 18 months. I'm sure people all around the world are saying it, but man, things have changed since those podcasts in the little studio over in London. How you traveling up in New South Wales? I think you're a better place to be up there than Melbourne right now.
Yeah, bro. For sure. Hopefully my internet's stable here. Just let me know if it's a bit dodgy, but if I need to maybe get up and move somewhere in the house, just let me know. How's it going? Is it all right there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, bro.
All right, perfect. Yeah, bro. No, yeah, it's been a crazy couple of years, hasn't it? It's there's like this, I think this Chinese proverb or Confucius or whatever, where it's like you know, I hope I live in interesting times, and we're definitely living in interesting times, isn't it? So I think I've got to the stage where I've developed a fairly nice mindset where I don't get too attached to you know, the media and the news and a lot of that sort of external white noise out there. Hey, so you know, obviously it's important to be informed, but I probably 4 or 5 years ago when I maybe first met you, mate, I was probably a little more kind of into it, you know what I mean? And it's sort of like it's just has a lot of heavy energy, and then you end up sort of just it becomes your internal reality. Whereas now it's just this divine play. Hey, it's just this kind of this dance, and you sort of not sort of everyone's kind of a character, and try not to take it too personally or too seriously sometimes, you know, obviously with a grain of salt. But yeah, man, no, life's good. I was actually chatting to a mate this morning, and we're just reflecting. Well, she had like a snake tattoo, and we're just talking about the snake, which has been coming up a little bit, and the idea that it's just, you know, this idea of shedding skin and metamorphosis and so on. And yeah, I really feel like the last 18 months, 12 months, 2 years that I've just shed this layer of skin, you know, just in terms of my health, relationships, past friendships, even just like, you know, programs that I was running in my mind. And yeah, I feel good, bro. You know, as you know, you've been a big part of that journey, and yeah, no, I'm excited for the future. You know, I'm just really excited. I'm in a good headspace, mate. So
yeah, it's a cool attitude to have.
yeah.
I like that idea of looking at it like a play, because Man, I would say that I share that same sentiment with you. Like, I'm pretty good at creating space and knowing that there's plenty of misconstrued stories being run through the media, and plenty of characters I disagree with. But I've given myself like a 2-month ban from Instagram, because I notice myself at the moment, like it's such like a twitch that I've developed the last couple of months, especially with everything that's going on. Well, in Australia, you're not exempt from that, but here in Melbourne, and like at the moment, like today, I think they're going to have a vote on this pandemic legislation, which is, I've still honestly got to try and get my head around exactly what it means and what it all looks like. But I've been there's an Instagram page, a chick runs it, called Voice for Victoria, and essentially she just puts in layman's terms, what's going on in the world of politics, whether it's the Liberals, whether it's Labor, whether it's someone in between or on the outskirts. And I think, honestly, like maybe it's become like a little bit of a crutch where I go to it for comfort, just to be told, oh no, it's going to be okay because this means that. And I thought, all right, it's time to stop having like this little crutch. And more than that, it's just like an intrusion into things that I'm trying to focus on. Like, I've got plenty of other things like this, and other like little creative endeavors that I'm trying to put my mind to. And you were saying how before, like what you can consume, it really does just become like your internal reality. And man, I gave it like a little test run just for 3 days. I was like, all right, let's just see how I feel. And bro, it's so cliche at this stage, but honestly, like just getting away for it, for me personally, I was like, man, I just felt a fresh sense of sort of peace and calm. And I thought the only thing I could really put it down to was, all right, well, I hadn't been so twitchy on the social media and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been a nice little process. But I'm interested just to see how that space, or how I feel after a month or so away, because you're right, man. Like it's just crazy how much your focus on really does just dictate how you feel. I've been reading this book at the moment called The Biology of Belief. I think you put me onto it. I was listening to that Novak Djokovic interview that you sent me a month ago, and I think they might have mentioned it in that podcast. I think. Anyway, I downloaded it, and it's a bloke who comes from a real sciencey background, and is explaining that for so long, so many years, so many of his younger years, he was very he thought he was just genetically predisposed to depression and anxiety and just like grumpy moods and stress. And anyway, so he started just to look into the genes that are associated with the moods that we feel. And essentially, I'm only 2/3 of the way through, but he's explaining at the moment that it's not news to you, that so much of what we feed our mind with actually does make an impact on the actual structure of our cells and the way that we interpret these messages being thrown around our body. And essentially, he's just explained that, through some, I'm looking forward to hearing exactly how he did it, but through some real practical strategies and almost a training routine for his mindset, he's really completely just changed the way he's been perceived by other people and the way he feels in himself. And it's sort of interested to pick your brain on this, because obviously that Sacred Men's Business class that you ran with myself and a few other boys was eye-opening to me, because we obviously I think on a surface level we're aware that where we put our attention dictates a lot of how we feel, just like we're aware that if we do a gym workout, it's going to be good for our health in some capacity. But I guess having the discipline to actually implement something on a daily basis to make sure you're seeing the results is a bit more difficult. So I was curious to unpack that idea with you a little bit, because obviously when I first met you back in 2016, you're in the middle of writing your book, Life on Your Terms. And it's sort of just interesting seeing your own journey and how it's unfolded a bit the last couple of years. It's been really cool to hear your thoughts and see your ideas develop and progress and change. And I guess I was just interested to know, like, it's a fairly broad question, but I was just curious to pick your brain about what the what that journey has looked like for you, what the inspiration to navigate this field has been, because it's not something that a lot of people commit a lot of time to from conversations I've had.
Oh, bro, great question. And thanks for sharing. No, this is probably an area of my life that is a big challenge, I would say. Screen time and it's not so much or it is screen time, but it's, I think, largely just distraction, distraction period. I speak for myself, but it's kind of like I'll be at home or in the afternoon chilling, and You know, it's like, okay, just pick up the phone because you're bored, you know, and then Instagram, cryptocurrency, emails, check the news, whatever. Back to Instagram, and then it's like, okay, go to the cupboard, and then it's like, whatever it might be. Yeah, distraction is something that I'm, you know, be interested to talk to you about further, you know, in the next few weeks, perhaps, because I know, yeah, I admire your kind of discipline and just sort of to unplug and you know, step away from the phone and things like that, even though I can't get hold of you 3 or 4 times. But yeah, like it's just so interesting. And I posted a little video, and I had this thought that came up to me on the gram the other day. I'm not sure if you saw it, but it's just this idea of like we're running through our own algorithms. And to summarize, like there's the sympathetic nervous system. When that's activated, I believe from memory, that's the flight or fight response. And you know, that algorithm, to use the metaphor, like social media or Spotify or whatever it is, Google, um, a lot of us are in that algorithm, you know, that sort of maybe not necessarily, you know, flight or fight, but it's just this sort of subtle level of fear and anxiety, you know, kind of desire. And you know, I'm sure there's scientific studies out there, but when you're spending so much time on your screen or on Instagram and judging yourself, or looking at the news and, you know, all the negative news out there, and especially over the last couple of years, and she's bombarded with headlines and death counts and all that sort of stuff, it's going to put you in a certain algorithm, you know, and this is like a lower state of consciousness. And then you go out into the world, and you know, it's just unconscious perhaps, or it might be conscious, but you're just on a lower vibe, energetically speaking. And that's, you know, that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned and tried to cultivate over the last couple of years, is just increasing my energy, you know, just increasing my vibration. And it's a bit of a cliche. It's like, oh, you know, it's a vibe, or what's your vibe like, or whatever. And for years, I probably didn't really know what that meant, but it's just your emotion. Emotion is energy in motion. So if you're happy, joyful, spreading love, that's a certain frequency, you know, up in your heart, or whatever it is. And you know, when you enter a room, or you know, when you're hanging out with great mates, you're all on that level. And you can feel it when someone enters a room, or you can feel conversely when someone's in a shit mood. I was actually at the beach this morning, and this chick came over where we were set up, and she was like she was just giving someone hell on the phone. It was like quite intense, and she was like pretty much yelling at someone on the phone. And just like the whole vibe, like, you know, in our little area on the beach was like, you know, it's just kind of what's going on here. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Where the other algorithm is the parasympathetic state, which is just rest and relaxation. And just to throw in the caveat, like one's not necessarily more important than the other. You know, it's important as on an evolutionary stage to have that fight and flight response. You know, when we were hunter-gatherers and, you know, needed to sort of wake up and run or whatever it is, and go in those moments. But my point is that we can tap into that parasympathetic state, you know, just taking it easy, taking a deep breath, doing a bit of a meditation, doing whatever you need to do, go for a swim in the morning, go for a walk, you know, hang out with your dog. And it has like a really big impact on our internal organs. You know, again, no expert, but when you have a lower heart rate, it just allows your organs to actually do their job, as opposed to your heart just beating and your chest having a shallow breath. Your breath, you're having a shallow breath breathing. You know, when you're just breathing deeply, when you're relaxed, when you're calm, your organs have a chance, you know, to digest, to do what they're supposed to do, to filter your body, clean your body. And, you know, it's going to have a great impact on your health. So I think it's just important to be aware. And, you know, you look at some people maybe over the last 2 years, you know, if you spent a majority or whatever amount of that time constantly in that certain negative algorithm, that's going to cause, you know, dis-ease leads to disease. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Yeah,
it's really interesting just how much of I love like the analogy or the idea of an algorithm just running our life, because it takes a little while for an algorithm to be changed or to recognize that there's a few little adaptations taking place. But once it's entrenched and once it sees what you like and once it gets a little bit of an idea, I guess it just keeps feeding and feeding, sort of just to echo what you've just explained. But it's so true. Like I notice it myself whenever there's a 2018, when we first got back from London, like I lost two people who were quite close to me, like one of my good friends, my uncle, and also my nan, who I'd sort of grown up with. And I just remember there was a real stage of grief that I was going through. And at the time, I just assumed I was depressed or whatever. I didn't quite have the insight to be able to recognize it was just grief that I was going through. Pretty similar experiences, I'd imagine, in a lot of ways. But one thing that I noticed was, really got myself into this rut. And it was almost just like you wake up, you feel the same feelings, you go through the same motions, and it's just sort of, rinse and repeat. And I reckon that the hardest thing, and maybe one of the biggest things that I've noticed, not just in myself, but in friends and family around me, is whenever we want to break out of that algorithm, it's like the hardest part of the movement, trying to escape that. Or like getting a boulder to move, that the hardest part is just getting that initial momentum. And then once you get on like a little bit of a momentum, starts to get easier and easier to roll until all of a sudden that algorithm's just being replaced. And that's one thing I've really enjoyed just looking at you for. Like I think you give me, a little bit of a compliment when you talk about my ability to step away from the phone and sort of live more intentionally. But one of the things that I've liked looking at you for is just your exploration into this world of health and well-being and spirituality, and just the changes that you've sort of implemented in your own life. And like, was there a moment for you where you started to think, all right, I really need to explore this? Or was it just a natural progression? Because for me, from the outside, I look at you and your journey in the book as like the start of the process, which obviously it wasn't, but it was just when I sort of got to meet you and witness so in my mind, that's the start. But I guess just the curiosity into that scene had to be developed somewhere for you. So I was curious to find out whether or not it was like a decisive moment or just a gradual journey
into the world of spirituality and health,
well-being, spirituality.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, mate. No, look, it's definitely been a journey, an evolving journey. I would say it's very much, again, use a metaphor, it's just been like a flower that's kind of ripened and then bloomed and blossomed and continues to grow. And there's that mycelium network of roots or whatever that continues to sort of grow and connect with other things. Where it's just, as you probably know, it probably started with travel, maybe even 15 years ago now. Firstly, I believe that we are essentially souls that have reincarnated over many lifetimes, if not thousands. And so, to say that the journey started 10 years ago or whatever it is, or this lifetime, is not necessarily true. I really believe there are old and young souls out there. And I think that's why you and I connect and resonate when we did. And, we always have great conversations. And a lot of my mates who I, have a very similar vibe with, I feel like, we've kind of been on this journey for a long time together collectively. So that's my first little spiel. But it started probably just traveling, mate, 10 years ago. I know Ram Dass kind of mentioned there's a few ways you can awaken or come to sort of this realization. One is through just reading text and so on and so forth, which definitely had an impact on me. Another one is through sort of some form of change in consciousness. Maybe it might be like psychedelics, for example. And traditionally, I suppose those were rites of passage and plant medicines and so on. Another one is, like a very traumatic, maybe trauma, or a moment, a near-death experience or something like that, or maybe a loved one that you lose, you know, can really turn you inward as well. So there's various ways to start to, you know, move towards that spirituality. You know, I look at some people who are caught in the rat race, and, you know, it's called a midlife crisis or whatever, but they wake up one day and they have a heart attack, or they just wake up and they said, oh, I had enough. And it's, you know, there's that little crack in our lives, and the soul's just screaming to get out of that crack. And then one day the crack just sort of appears or widens, and the soul comes out. And that's commonly referred to as the dark night of the soul type moment. So yeah, look, over the last couple of years in particular, I really enjoyed the realm of spirituality, and, you know, Ram Dass, and that led to like Paramahansa Yogananda, and then there's Osho, and then there's the teachings of Jesus and things like that. And that led to, you know, me dabbling in yoga and meeting a whole bunch of cool, interesting people on that path. And then it's sort of also evolved into people like Joseph Campbell and, you know, what's called, I guess, the mythology sort of, it's called, and then that has, over the last year or two, morphed into the men's movement, really, or I guess, you know, divine masculine or sacred masculinity, which, as you know, I'm passionate about. But I also just think that every man out there, you know, needs his tribe of brothers to support one another, as we've always had for thousands of years. And it's just, you know, we've had this disconnect over the last couple of centuries. So yeah, it's been an awesome journey, and that's currently where I'm at. Is yeah, I'm just, you know, that's a lifelong journey, isn't it? So
yeah, no, awesome, man. Yeah, awesome. I'm really curious to pick your brain about this men's movement as well, because, you know, anyone who pays even the slightest bit of attention to, you know, the cultural narrative at the moment is that, you know, and it's not necessarily the greatest percentage of voices saying this, but I think the loudest and leftist voices are saying this, and it's almost people are almost insulted by men and the structures that we have in place, and there's a lot of hatred. Like it's really interesting to see, even in the comedy world, just how free so many comedians are to speak about men and everything that's wrong with them. Whereas if you flip that, and, you know, if I got on stage and started doing the same about women, all of a sudden it's incredibly insulting and highly inappropriate, and not that it's necessarily my style, but I'm fascinated to unpack this a little bit more, because while it's so easy to start shouting about how horrific the patriarchy or whatever else you believe about men is, it's also hard to hide away from the fact that, well, in Australia, like 8 men are killing themselves every day. I'm not sure how those figures sort of translate across the rest of the world, but it's very clear that something is missing from, like, the heart, from the life of so many men, whether that's meaning. And you mentioned being caught up in the rat race before, and you know, then having these dark nights of the soul where all of a sudden you're confronted with the fact that what you're doing isn't where, like, true and deep, super meaningful, what do you say? Sort of a super meaningful experience on this life comes from, as good as it might be temporarily. So, yeah, this idea of manliness is fascinating to me, especially, bro, like the last 18 months. Obviously, you're his godfather, but little Charlie boy, little Rock, my boy, has really opened my eyes up. And I'm reading through a book at the moment called The Intentional Father, and essentially it's just looking at the role of a man in the life of your son and what it should look like, and different ways to train. And it's really interesting. It's also confronting, because, like, you're learning on your feet. You can, as much as you read about it, until you got your little one there, it's like, all right, just go, get started. So I'm curious, and I've been fascinated in hearing a little bit about this journey into the men's movement as well, because obviously my biggest goal now is obviously to raise a good little fella, who's confident, who's kind, who's you know, everything else that anyone would wish for their son. But it's certainly a learning experience for me. So you started this Sacred Men's business. You started a group which is obviously tailored towards building up like almost a brotherhood a support group for a lot of guys. It's interesting to hear how highly men seem to benefit from this environment, whether it's from like I've spoken to our rubbish truck driver, bro. I bumped into him in the park the other day, and he's just an interesting dude. He's got face tattoos. He looked like he's had a wild ride. And I said, bro, like, what's your essentially, not in these words. I said, mate, what's your story? And he was just explaining to me that he was drugged out. He was an alcoholic. He had no ability or no control over his addiction to the substance. And he goes, mate, for me, AA, just getting in a room full of men who not only have experienced what I had experienced, but also had found a way that they could navigate out of it, was really encouraging, just to find out that I'm not the only one. So one of the things I loved about the men's circles that we did a couple of months ago was just that, just being able to be vulnerable, being able to be open, knowing that you're not just going to be smacked down, or no one's just going to talk shit to you about whatever it is that you're struggling with. I think it's a really powerful platform. So yeah, what's the idea with this, man? I'm sure it's a big, deep sort of adventure that you've embarked on. So it might be a bit hard to put into words, but yeah, unpack this Sacred Men's business for us a little more, and tell me about what the goal is with that.
Yeah, sure, mate, with pleasure. Yeah, so Sacred Men's Business is just a little men's circle that I guess it's on hold at the moment, but I'm looking forward, or just we'll see where it goes in the future. But I'm also in my own circle, which we catch up online, and I've been doing it for maybe 3 months now. Kind of coincided when we were catching up, and just the universe kind of just open up, and I found this group, and asked if I could join, and I've been doing that for the last few months. And yeah, so we catch up twice a week, actually. Obviously it's optional, and you make it when you can make it, but every second Tuesday, or every fortnight, we do like a proper circle where you just go around the group and everyone just has whatever you want to say, 5 minutes or so. Usually there's a group of about 20 of us, but usually there's anywhere between a dozen to 15 jump on each week, and we have a proper circle. So the idea is that for, like I said, for centuries or thousands of years, men would catch up, and there used to be the woman space in the tribe. There used to be the communal space where we got together, and there was also the men's space, and that's a really beautiful, sacred space. And as you know, and for the men out there, when you're with a group of men, it's just a different type of energy. It's nourishing for the soul. It's that brotherhood, but we also call each other on our bullshit. You leave the ego at the door, and obviously when there's no women involved as well, there's not that sort of it's just a different dynamic, really. It's just different. So I guess I grew up playing sport all my life, and in my 20s, and I loved it, as I'm sure you did. And yeah, for probably the last 5 or 6 years, I was just kind of missing something. I don't know what I was necessarily looking for, but then I realized, I think I found it, where it's just this brotherhood. I enjoyed playing cricket and footy and hanging out with my mates, and just having a laugh mainly, and catching up at the pub and so on. But then stopped playing sport, and that's really I've missed that aspect of my life. But this one, the men's circles out there are a lot more conscious. They're a lot more, just a lot more conscious. There's a time and a place for catching up with your mates at the pub and watching the footy, or just, talking about the world. And then there's also a time and a place for, talking about the heart. And as you know, we explored that for over a month when we were doing our circle. But yeah, it's just like a lot of these practices, or I think it's probably the world of self-development, spirituality, whatever you want to call it. There's yoga, there's exercise, there's the gym, there's meditation, there's all these sorts of things you can do. But I would say maybe one of the most powerful things you can add to your life is just joining a circle, a conscious circle. And, you maybe catch up for once a week or once a fortnight for an hour or an hour and a half, and you just go around the circle and you just share. So yeah, the learnings have been profound, and you know, I've had some issues in my life, but you just realize like everyone's going through the same sorts of issues, or some people are actually, you know, having some really going through tough times, and it puts your experiences into perspective. But then the other thing as well is just it's really boosted my confidence, I would say, or like inner confidence, if that's a word. But like you know, I just feel like when I'm go out into my daily activities, I've got like a you know, this kind of unseen brotherhood that has my back, you know, and like it's like, oh, okay, you know, I'll go for a run or whatever, and you know, maybe I'll sort of it's like, oh, should I just, you know, just hang out and sit on the couch? Oh no, you know, like my brotherhood got my back, I'm gonna go for a run. Or whatever it might be, work related relationships and so on and so forth. You just got like this group of brothers that you know are sort of like got your back, and that you're going to catch up with, and you can, you know, sort of, you're accountable. It's just, it's called accountability, isn't it? You know, it's just like you say something in the circle and you got to do it, you know, or if you say something, stick to your word, because you know next week when it comes to circle time, and you got to look at your brothers in the eyes and say, you know, I was true to my word, or I wasn't. And this, yeah, it's accountability. It's also integrity. Like I said, being true to your word and just sticking up for what's right. Another, yeah, integrity is such like an interesting topic, or such a huge topic, but I feel like when you're just a bit of a lone wolf, you know, and you can kind of just maybe be a little bit lackadaisical on yourself. But you know, when you've got that tribe around you, you just got to stick to your integrity. Otherwise, you're letting your brothers down. So yeah, no, it's been really profound, and I just feel like my personal growth has really just grown quite a lot. I was sort of plateauing there for a little bit, and it's just really nourishing, mate. So yeah, highly recommend any men out there, or any girlfriends or wives who, you know, have a partner, is to try and find a men's circle, just start your own, really, and just see where it goes.
That's been one of the most interesting things I think I've realized over the last 18 months here in Australia, especially with these lockdowns. There's been so many of my close mates here in Victoria that I've spoken to, and one of my closest mates over here, one thing that he constantly says to me is like, all right, I reckon I can do like 2 days is kind of the limit that I can go, just being a lone wolf, just sitting in my house, doing work, you know, 7 o'clock, watching TV, going to bed, repeat. He goes, I just noticed there's, it's almost a, what do you say? Not a frustration, not an irritability. I've lost the word, but essentially he's just chomping at the bit to just get out and fill that social tank. And I reckon if there's been a time where it's ever been more obvious just how much we are, you know, we're so much better when we're a part of a crew, when we're part of a unit, to not only fill that social tank, but as you say, to have that accountability, and just know that you got people to turn to in times of trouble. I think it's really interesting. There's like, I'm 34. I know you're about the same as me. There's a lot of people around our age that, yeah, they are just caught in this rat race, and the idea of socializing, it's almost you know, I hope if I have time for it, I'll try and prioritize it. But for a lot of them, it's not something that any intentional thought is put into. So like when you were saying that, you know, you meet out, you got the accountability, but you've also had some profound experiences or some profound sort of takeaways from the group. What are a few of those profound takeaways that people who are sort of on the outer or feeling, you know, a little bit isolated right now might be missing out on, that they could, you know, they could start to develop in their own life?
Yeah, sure. Tough question. So the circle that I'm in, like I said, it's deliberately like a conscious circle. So there is that element of spirituality and so on. You know, there are other ones, like you mentioned previously, alcoholic, AA or whatever, Alcoholics Anonymous and things like that, which is like a different version. But the one that I'm in is a conscious led one. So for me, it's probably like just opening like your heart. And what I mean by that is just like expressing yourself and your emotions more freely. And then when I find, like, when I'm having conversations like this, or with my friends, or just having dinner or something, instead of, maybe previously I was like maybe a bit more of a closed book, because I've had the practice of sharing with my brothers in the circle. And yeah, it's just like anything, like with comedy, you build your confidence over 1, 2, 5, 10 shows, and then by, hopefully whatever, 6 months later, it's just second nature. You're not really, you've overcome that fear or that vulnerability. So it's the same thing. It's just that muscle, that emotional muscle that you get to use and exercise. And then I found that I've just met some, like, a lot of like, half a dozen really cool people over the last 6 months. And instead of sort of meeting them, at the pub and being like superficial and just talking about whatever, like I said, the footy or whatever, I've met people, at some gatherings or things like this, just hanging out, some of my neighbors, and we just connect like really quickly, or on a much deeper level really quickly. And we can really talk about, some really, yeah, I guess, like I said, deep or profound topics, and topics of the heart and things like that, as opposed to just, oh, how's work, how's the weather, so on and so forth. So that's been profound, really cool. And yeah, I've just stepped away from also some of the bullshit in the world, some of those more or less sort of meaningless pursuits, or some of my past relationships or friendships that weren't necessarily serving me as well. And you just realize, like, there are men out there who want what you want, who, want to sharpen the blade, who don't want to waste any more time, who don't just want to go to the pub and just, throw their money away and drink beers, or do drugs or anything like that. And so yeah, I've found my tribe. That's probably a really great phrase. I know you and I have been good mates for a few years now, and we get on like a house on fire, but just expanding that. So yeah, there's those are just a couple of things. I was just thinking about something else. Just give me a second. Resources wise, so like, we run like an app where we're just on this group, and we just sort of share or chat, or if something comes up, or share videos and things like that. So I've discovered a couple of really cool authors and books and things like that, from men. A few of the men are 10 years, 12 years older than me, in their late 40s or whatever it is. And yeah, you just sort of have those, like, maybe older mentor type figures. The leader of the group's a really really powerful man, and he, it's like, okay, well, maybe in 10 years time, I'd love to be living that type of life, and on that path. So yeah, they just sort of keep sharpening the iron, sharpening the blade. And yeah, so when they have an open circle, mate, I'll have to send you the link so you can come in.
Dude, hook me up. Yeah,
me.
I'm super interested. Like, I love the every time
Yeah.
you talk about it, I think, all right, that could be the tipping point. Every time I hear you say, I go, all right, well, there's plenty in there. But especially at the moment, I think, as we've sort of touched on, interesting to go back to your Confucius quote earlier in the conversation. It's definitely been interesting times, and I know, like we've mentioned the word, finding a tribe and things like that. And what's become incredibly clear in my life, just over the last couple of years, both in myself to some degree, or to a big degree, that I've had to pull myself up on, is there's like a real tribal nature taking place in everything, but maybe magnified or on steroids, just through this whole COVID thing, and your approach to it, and what you think should happen, what you think shouldn't happen, and blah, blah, blah. It'd be nice just to have that group that you can bounce ideas off. And because we've had some conversations just over the last couple of months where we're like, mate, are we crazy? Are we mental? Like, are we missing something? Are we not reading enough? Are we not hearing enough? Are we deaf to what's really going on? And then here at the moment, obviously across Australia, it's no news to anyone that you have a government sort of just saying, all right, we can inject health into you. And as a result, you're going to be free to go about your daily lives. But if you don't have this, doesn't matter about your obesity levels, doesn't matter about your drinking habits, your drug habits, your history, where you spend your time, how much sunlight you get, what you eat. So bro, I went into a shop down here a couple of weeks ago, and they said, mate, you can only come in here if you got a vaccine passport. And I said, mate, it's an op shop, it's just it's great. And I peeked in, and bro, I'm not kidding. There was a really obvious obesity walking through the shop. Like, there were not just one lady, but there was about 6 or 7 people who, you don't have to be a genius to see these people aren't healthy. And it's been interesting to say the least, but frustrating on many respects, because obviously, like, you and I have been mates for years now. And one thing that I'm well aware of with you, and vice versa, is that one of our greatest passions is health. And one of our greatest passions is just being, or for me, I speak for myself, I'm very cautious with what I consume, from like a media perspective to a food perspective to, a social perspective or whatever else. So the idea of just going willy-nilly and chucking something in my body in order to be able to just go about my daily life has been really confronting and shocking to me. And it's so easy just to throw me into a camp of, oh, he's an anti-vaxxer. It's definitely not true in many respects. But this tribal nature around this particular topic has been frustrating, interesting, sort of shocking to me. And I know it's sort of been an interesting experience in you over the last sort of 3 or 4 months. But how have you navigated this period? Because obviously, I think some roots in the world of the spiritual is really helpful, to be able to plant your feet on something more solid, even as the wind of our culture's just going mental is really helpful. So, bro, I know this is probably 3 podcasts in itself, but I was just curious to pick your mind about how you've navigated this world, and how you're sort of just trekking through definitely the most, I guess you say, crazy experience of my life.
Yeah, sure, mate. The $1 million question, eh?
Bro, give us the answer.
Oh, bro. I wish I had it, I suppose. Look, yeah. What can I say, man? Where do I start? It's very obvious, and look, it's just, if you haven't woken up now, like, there's really, I guess there's maybe not much, with kindness and compassion, but it's just, without getting into the specifics and laws and headlines and all that sort of stuff, there is a spiritual war going on, and the battle is for our souls. There is that path of conformity and just and numbness. Numbness is being a number, same word, of being a consumer, of just having your life force harvested and plugged into algorithms, and just sending off your money to make purchases online, and so on and so forth. And it's very much like the Matrix. It's just there are a percentage of people plugged in, and they're just having their life force sucked out of them. There's a great bit of research that's been done, but the zombie movies and the word zombie, or just zombies in general, in popular culture, movies, cartoons, and so on, has exponentially risen over the last 3 or 4 decades. And that's kind of like a subconscious what's the word I'm saying, like, projection of reality. And you just have this percentage of people who we've become sort of zombie-like. And you just look at some of the conformity going on right now, and just waking up, dragging yourself out of bed, sticking yourself on the train, going to your job, and not living a life of purpose and meaning and love and joy and happiness. And that's that zombie mentality. So yeah, look, there's just I would say there's probably, you know, there's three camps right now. There's that matrix, the people who are plugged in. There's a lot of people sitting on the fence still, and a lot of people who have woken up over the last 2 years, and that's been a silver lining. You know, it's 2 jabs, you know, are you going to take the third? Are you going to take the fourth? Like, when are you going to wake up? You know, just some of these things that have just been so obvious for the whole time, you know, the profits that these companies are making, the fact that bottle shops have been open the whole time, you know, keeping people socially distanced. You know, for me, wearing that mask, breath, or to inspire means, or the root word there is spirit, which means spirit. So when we are breathing, when we're inspiring, we are being connected to spirit. So for me, I suppose this is a little bit occult, but you know, it's that disconnection of spirit. Having you locked up in a room and not being able to connect with other humans it's a crime against humanity to a certain extent. We are supposed to be connected with our brothers and sisters, dancing, loving, hugging, you know, enjoying life, being out in the sun, in nature. You know, this complete disconnect from Mother Nature and the divine earth and so on and so forth, or just the divine in general. So yeah, and like you know, the other team is this team. You know, the Star Wars is another great movie. There's the dark side of the Force, and then there's the rebels. And you know, it's time for the rebels to wake up and rise up, and we are. And there's definitely some really beautiful, passionate people out there. You know, I was at the protest on the weekend, and I just vividly remember, and you can sort of see also like-minded people when I meet them and about, these people are like the most beautiful people on earth, and you can just see it in their eyes and their health and their bodies, and their skin is glowing, and you know, middle-aged people, older women, like kids, and this is, you know, this is team humanity. So it's really, you know, the time is now. It's or the time was actually 18 months ago, but it's time to choose. Like, are you going to be on team, you know, deep state, team big pharma, team crony capitalism, and so on and so forth, and be a number, a zombie? Or are we going to be on team humanity? You know, are we going to rise above it and come together? So, you know, just to conclude, again, as I mentioned earlier, I believe we are, you know, souls on this journey of growth. And you also, the soul chooses this life, you know, it chooses a certain path. And it's like, I'm going to be born, you know, in this period of time during this, you know, crazy, you know, 2021 sort of experiment, for this very reason. You know, it's like, this is the spiritual challenge, and it's kind of like the soul chose this lifetime to answer these calls. It's like, yeah, you know, the government's doing X, Y, and Z. What are you going to do? Like, this is the actual test now. You know, this is what you've been waiting for many, many lifetimes. What are you going to do? This is the test. So otherwise, you know, maybe next lifetime you might sort of you might crack it and level up to the next level on the video game.
It's interesting, man. So, like everything that you just explained to me, I'm obviously, like, you're preaching to the converted. Everything you just said makes so much sense to me. But I got plenty of people, you know, not too far away from, you know, my friendship circle, even a couple on the inside, who would hear that and go, oh, these guys are absolutely batshit crazy. There's a pandemic going on. The government's doing the best they can to try and navigate their way through it. We're in lockdown because we've got to try and prevent the spread. Obviously, we're navigating. Do you know what I mean? And there's a real resistance to that idea. Like, it's I've tried as best as I can. I think I've done a fairly good job to actually understand the other side's argument. Like, why do they think I'm so mental with what I believe about this particular situation? And I think essentially that it comes down to this idea of there's a pandemic, it's dangerous to our health, the government's protecting us. As soon as this is done, we'll be back to our normal lives. And it's interesting, man. I heard Jocko Willink say the other day that people are just watching different movies. Like, I look at the other side of this argument with almost the same just disbelief as they must be looking at me. I feel like what we're seeing, who we're focusing on, the numbers that we're hearing, the fear or lack of fear, it's just so incredibly different that it's just hard to fathom how, like you say, I guess it's this idea of awake and asleep, how you can see this situation so differently. Like, have you had any sort of, I don't know, what's the question I'm trying to ask? It's just a really, it's just such an interesting, intense conversation to try and have. And I think I've sort of given up trying to convince, not that I'm 100% certain I'm right by any means. I've been wrong about heaps. I'm sure I'll be wrong about heaps more in the future. Like, just hang around for a couple of weeks. But there's just some people out there who look at me as I'm batshit crazy. I'm not doing my part for society. I've lost the plot. I've gone off the deep end. And I go, hang on, like I think that about you. How do you navigate that part of the world? Because you're a guy who, when you get to know you, you're a very relaxed customer, at least on a surface level. Like, I know you said there's some changes and stuff that you've been making internally, but from the outside, I go, man, like, and my wife Jessie would say the same. You're one of the most relaxed customers that I know, which one thing I love about you. But how have you navigated this with relaxation or whatever? Because for me, man, I've never wanted to fight so many people so much. But I keep coming back to Tice. Like, use this as an opportunity to grow, mate. Otherwise, it's just gonna, you know, make you bitter and upset and cynical, and maybe to a degree it actually did. But yeah, I was just curious to pick your brain about that, because I know you've taken a couple of whacks along the way.
Oh, mate, yeah, no, it's been a fun ride. Look, there's a great metaphor again, where there's kind of like this person and have a raincoat on or a jacket on, and you know, the sun or the weather comes along and it's like, oh, I really like that jacket, I want that jacket, and so it blows this gale force wind at this person, and you know, what this person does is just hold on to their jacket twice as hard, and you know, obviously they don't get their jacket. Whereas on the other side of the story, the sun comes along and this person wearing this jacket, and it comes out of the clouds and it's a beautiful sunny day, and the person takes their jacket off. And the metaphor, or the moral of the story is, you know, with love and friendliness and joy, you know, you can reach people, as opposed to sort of the hate and the anger and so on. So it's a really nice little story there. But yeah, mate, look, some people you're not gonna be able to convince, and I think you can sort of tell within the first 30 seconds of a conversation, and you know, don't even bother. Just, you know, they're on their own journey, and you just got to walk away. And I'm probably not going to be friends with that person, or we're just on different wavelengths. You know, I'm not on that journey, and that's fine. You know, again, it's a good way to practice empathy and compassion, and you know, you get to choose who you want to spend your time with. So there are those people. You know, I guess it is really challenging if those are your family members or your loved ones. You know, that's a different story. But then the other people who are sitting on the fence, I the best advice that I've heard recently or can give is just to lead by example. And you know, I think if someone were to meet me or you, or like I said, these really beautiful people that I've seen, you know, at the protests and so on, it's like, oh, what's their secret? And when you see those people, they're, you know, you can, like I said earlier, you can just feel this energy and this love, and that's like, and they're, you know, they're just, they're exuberant, you know, they're vibrating, and it's like, oh, what's going on there? And then, you know, I'll see someone, you know, you said earlier you went to this op shop, and you know, without being too harsh, but you know, you see someone on like one of those rolly schoolies with the scooters with the masks on, and you know, they're pale, and you know, they're doing their thing. But you know, I look at this person across the road like you, who's just, you know, got a big smile on his face, super fit, going for a run, you know, hanging out with his son. I'm like, oh geez, like that's you know, the team that I want to be on, team life, team humanity. So, you know, I would just lead by example is my answer, and lead or ask some of those questions come from a place of love and compassion and so on. You know, there's some other great things, you know, like on social media and so on. comedy is a great way to reach people. Art, you know, like there's so many great memes that have been coming out over the last few months, and it's just like, it's so like these memes are like all time and they're so funny, and it's like, how can you argue with this? Like this is hilarious. Like, are you really going to go for your 7th booster like in 3 years, you know? Like so like, just like what, you know, and I know there's a bunch of YouTubers out there who have made a name for themselves with their comedy, and comedy is just such a great disarming strategy, as opposed to yelling at someone and saying you're
so
wrong or stupid or so on and so forth. So look, and again, like, I'm more than happy to be wrong, but for me, I'm living my truth. I'm living my truth. This is what I believe. This is what my heart and my mind is telling me. And then the last thing that I just wanted to mention is intuition. And again, you know, this spiritual warfare, this war on consciousness, we have been designed to be stuck up in our heads, you know, since schooling, and disconnected from our creative side, our intuition, our artistic expression, that throat chakra, expressing yourself. And a lot of people have been disconnected from those beautiful parts of their being. And for me, and you know, I'm still working on it, but I want to really get back into my intuition, follow my gut, follow my heart. And when I meet people, like when I see something on the news, man, like you just watch a 6 o'clock news or a YouTube video, it's like, I can just tell this is bullshit, you know, within, like, I don't even want to look it up. Like, I'm just like, this chick's crazy. Like, what's going on? This is just like, whatever. That's just a small example. But my point is, you can just feel in your intuition, you know, like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. But follow your heart, you know, feel in your intuition. If you've got this feeling like, oh, something's up, you're probably right. You know, so and the decisions that I've made in the past where I have followed my heart and tapped into my intuition, guess what, you know, like they've all ended up being like amazing and had a beautiful outcome for me.
Yeah, man, it's funny you say it, because I reckon you've got a reputation, I know, even amongst your family, of definitely in my mind, of being, I feel like you've got this reputation of just being able to land on your feet. And I often wonder, like, people from the outside can look at that and go, oh, he's just lucky. But I honestly think that intuition is a big part of it. Obviously, like in some regards, whether it's from work or whatever, like there's an element of doing what you do really well. But then there's another element of just being open and being aware of where you are and what the situation that you're in is. And it is funny, I think from the outside, what can appear as luck is very often just that intuition, that openness, and that awareness of when you got to take a step in a certain direction. So it's interesting to hear that it's an area of your life that you're actually, you know, trying to develop and flourish in a little more.
Yeah, thanks, bro. Yeah, what is it's, you know, it's this idea of it's called trusting the process, you know, trusting the process. And there's, you know, millions of people out there right now who have, you know, maybe had to have had their things shaken up in their life, and they've had to trust their process, you know, and trust in, I like to use just the word God now, you know, trust in God. So yeah, I was just going to say something else. Oh, another great teaching from this whole couple of years is, you know, it's not a crisis, it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you can just interchange those words, you know, as you know, like you and I both, mate, you know, we've had our moments over the last couple of years since we've been hanging out, and, you know, you've had your dark patches, but those aren't crises. They might be, but my point is there are actually opportunities for growth, there are opportunities for change, opportunities for rebirth. And this is, you know, to get back into the sacred teachings, this is the cycle of nature. It's death and rebirth. It's winter, you know, spring, summer, nourishment. It's, you know, the regeneration of the forest after a bushfire.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, like, even if worst case, or not worst case scenario, but say, for example, you lose your job, or your best friend doesn't want to talk to you, or whatever it might be, it sucks. But maybe in 6 months' time, you start and you find like an opportunity opens up, and you have, it takes you down that path that's actually been your true path or your calling. Or maybe you find a new group of friends that are, you know, amazing, and you know, that opens up, or whatever it might be. Um,
Yeah, it's good, man. Yeah, it's really interesting, just the impact of just that simple reframing of a situation. Like I love that. Often, what I've started to do, actually, since I was listening, one thing you did send me was that dual Joe Rogan podcast, and it just blew my mind. And one of the things that stood out to me, or two of the things that stood out to me from that podcast that I've been trying to implement like on a daily basis, almost like a training routine, is so she was explaining that she has two states in her life, or two states that she noticed. One was almost, I think it was like a dilation, and one was a stress. And then she said she was always in two states. She was either, felt free and relaxed, or she felt stressed and tight. And so she started to pay a little more attention to what was she doing when the situation occurred where she felt quite stressed, and she'd write that in a column. And then what was she doing in a situation where she felt quite free, quite light, like she was dilated a little more, and she would write that down, whether it was being in nature or meditating or reading or hanging with friends or eating a great meal or whatever else it might have been. And first of all, that awareness is such a powerful thing to be able to develop. So I created like a little 2-column thing for me, just trying to invest in some more of the areas that bring life rather than bring stress. But to use that as a foundation and go to the next point, that the other thing that she said she did, to touch on intuition that you spoke about, is often she'll just sit down and have a conversation with herself. So she'll ask herself a question. She goes, for something so simple, it blows my mind how often I have like an answer that I'm quite confident in. And what's so cool about that is that situation that might be stressful or on the surface might be appear quite hard to navigate, or a small death. Often, just with that reframing or a fresh perspective, can be exactly as you say, that opportunity. But like anything, I guess it's a little bit of a habit. And for me, even as someone who's relatively aware of, or at least interested in mindset and, where it is that I put my mind, I still catch myself at times being grumpy or impatient or a little stressed and going, oh my gosh, like, hang on a second. I know exactly what's going on here. I'm just running a particular story in my mind, which there's no evidence that it's true, but it's just something that I've bought into to such a degree that I've come to believe it. So, man, I think, just to, I guess, put a blanket over some of the ideas, it's such a powerful thought, that idea of, all right, being aware of where you are and being aware of, how you interpret situations is such a powerful thing. Because it often blows my mind just how quickly I can change the way I see a situation with some conscious effort. I can go from feeling stressed and frustrated in one moment to, as you say, seeing it as an opportunity for growth in another. So, really, really great point, man.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more, mate. I really, this is like such a huge teaching, or practice, or opportunity for growth, is just that mind element. Hey, it's just so profound if I or we can just sort of change that lens. And this, it's just probably gonna have the biggest impact in your life, I reckon. It's just having a little more control over our minds. Totally, couldn't agree more.
No, awesome, bro. Well, dude, as always, I could seriously talk to you for the rest of the day, and we'll do plenty more of these in the future. But I've got to get myself organized, because I'm going to pick up a little camera in Geelong, and then I'm heading to the city tonight to go tell some funny jokes. So I'll be doing my best to tell funny jokes. So, but man, thanks for coming on. It's so good to do it with you again, and have a chance to sit down and have a real chat. We'll, as I said, we'll do plenty more.
No, man, my pleasure. Always a pleasure. No, it's great, man. It's good to be back and have the band back together, the duo back together, mate. And looking forward to coming down in a month or so's time and hanging out and exploring and seeing Rock and Jipper and so on. Awesome. And obviously chilling the flat and going for a few runs, a few coffee dates and so on.
Bro, bring your bathers. Can't wait.
Sweet.
See you, brother.
All right, brother. I'll speak to you soon.